ESPN free mobile app.
And he scores!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hennig.
It's a Hump Day Wednesday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As how about them Phillies? They actually got some offense going last night, some dingers last night. And the big news of the day, how about the NFL jumping in on a Wednesday to be like, hey, we're still here. NFC East got a lot more interesting today. We'll get into all that and more this hour. It's Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg will join me coming up in about 20 minutes from now. And as always, you guys can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Before we get to any of the Phillies, let's get to the NFL news because, frankly, I was a little surprised when the news dropped this morning. And it's probably my surprise. The news is why I was so excited to write about it at 97.3 ESPN.com, which was the news of Dallas Goedert remaining with the Eagles. Now, the surprise wasn't specifically Goedert staying with the Eagles. The surprise was how we got here, the journey to this result. Because remember, the trade speculation that became rumors began at the NFL Combine. Remember, it was Nick Sirianni who months ago gave a very unenthusiastic endorsement of Dallas Goedert. And then it was 2 months later when Howie Roseman did the same thing. They both made comments like, well, he's a player on our roster, and we love Dallas Goedert. He helped us win a Super Bowl. Those aren't real endorsements. Those guys were just saying stuff for the sake of saying something. And so now you go from a situation where the head coach and the general manager of your football team go from saying, yeah, he's on our team, yeah, he's on the roster, to Dallas Goedert is back and he's better than ever, or at least we're hoping he is at 30 years old and missing 22 games in the last 5 years. Because that's the real conversation behind everything here. It wasn't that the Eagles didn't want Dallas Goedert. It was, as I explained in my article at 97.3 ESPN.com, they didn't want to give him that $14 million cash upfront bonus. He had a roster bonus he was owed. They didn't want to give him $14 million. Now, as of today, we found out, according to ESPN's Field Yates and NFL Network's Mike Garafolo, both reporting that it's a $4 million savings for Goedert. So for the Eagles in paying Goedert. And that seems to be the real what brought this together, which is somewhere along the way between the end of the NFL draft and this morning, Dallas Goedert's representatives and the Philadelphia Eagles came to some sort of agreement in restructuring this final year of his deal that allowed him to stay in Philadelphia for a lesser number. Now, according to multiple reports, the Eagles had given Dallas Goedert permission to seek a trade. And along the way, Goedert had expressed to the Eagles he wanted to stay in Philadelphia. He wanted to remain with the team that drafted him. But for Philadelphia, they were planning for contingencies. That's why they signed guys like Harrison Bryant in the offseason, because they were trying to ensure that if Goedert wasn't here, that they had somebody else to play tight end. Even if Goedert was here, last year, remember, it was just Grant Calcaterra and then fill in the blank tight end, who they kept bringing in here, like LJ Smith and CJ Uzama wasn't good enough. So this offseason, they acquired younger but less experienced tight ends like Harrison Bryant and Kalen Granson. Now, Bryant and Granson were both tight ends who were very productive in college, but had not gotten the same level of opportunities in the NFL. So now that you have Bryant and Granson on the roster, along with Calcaterra, and you bring back Goedert, you have significant depth at a position that was a bit of a weak. I don't want to say weakness because I think it's unfair to Calcaterra. They didn't have anybody behind Calcaterra. Like if Calcaterra went down and Goedert went down, you were at an incredible disadvantage last year. So now Goedert, who again misses an average of 4 to 5 games a year over the last 5 seasons, from 2020 to 2024, Goedert has missed 22 games. And for as important of a role that he had on the Eagles' run to Super Bowl 59, as important of a piece that he has been in an offense that has gone through not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but on their 5th different offensive coordinator since 2020. This organization has leaned on Dallas Goedert as a pass catcher, and according to reports, the Eagles coaching staff wanted Goedert back because of his role as a run-blocking tight end. So the Eagles saw value in him all along. And Goedert said, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to leave. And they found a way to get it done. And it just happens to be on the same day as the Dallas Cowboys acquiring George Pickens. Now, on the surface, the bigger news is acquiring Pickens. Because for NFL fans out there, George Pickens is considered one of the 15 best wide receivers in football at worst, right? And now a Pickens-Lamb tandem is arguably one of the best duos in all of football. You know, the Cowboys are now in the same conversation as the Eagles and the Bucks and the Bengals and the Vikings as having one of the best wide receiver duos in all of football. And they probably jump ahead of a team like the Rams that have their own duo. It probably jump ahead of a bunch of other teams. Maybe even Washington, depending on how you feel about Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. Because you're talking about a guy in George Pickens with mediocre at best quarterback play, has 12 touchdown catches in the last 3 seasons. This is a man who is averaging 16.3 yards per reception with, again, mediocre at best quarterback play. But the reason why for us in Philadelphia the Goedert news is bigger is because honest people know that George Pickens comes with baggage. George Pickens, based on his production, should have required Dallas to give up a 2nd and a 3rd round pick. Instead, Dallas gives up a 3rd and a 5th round pick, and they get George Pickens and another draft pick in return. In other words, the Steelers knew that in order to get rid of this guy, they were not going to get his maximum value because he's a malcontent. He's a problem child. He is a disgruntled employee. And for the Eagles, while they bring back a guy who is a model citizen, beloved by the coaching staff and his teammates, the Dallas Cowboys brought in a wild card. George Pickens goes from a coaching staff where he was, for the most part, kept in line, and now going to an organization that has a long history of letting their star players do whatever they want. Not a great recipe for a player in Pickens who has been combustible. And I totally foresee a scenario where the Dallas Cowboys start the year out, 3-0, 3-1, averaging 35 points a game, and just going explosive after explosive. And then things get tough. Teams start getting tape on the Cowboys. They start playing them a little differently. Defenses start limiting Pickens and Lamb in certain passing situations, forcing Dak Prescott to go to other players. And then Pickens starts complaining about his targets and his touches, and he starts getting in fights and arguments. And then it implodes the Cowboys' season. No one foresees that with Dallas Goedert. And there's a good reason why. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Chris from the Villa says, Josh, I definitely agree with you a lot of times, but I feel like the Eagles just didn't want to endure. They didn't know. So, Chris, I think you might have mistyped this a little bit, but I think what you're trying to say is that the Eagles love Dallas Goedert. They know what he brings to the table when he's healthy, and they didn't want to endure a year with a new coordinator and not having a quality enough tight end. I think that's what you're trying to say, Chris in the Villas. Please correct me and text back in at 609-403-0973. Listen, Chris, if you would have read my article on 97.3ESPN.com, the reporting is out there. The Eagles coaching staff wanted Dallas Goedert back. Goddard's teammates wanted him back. Goddard said, I don't want to go anywhere. This all came down to money. And the Eagles said, look, for us, we want you here, but we don't want you at $14 million. We want you at $10 million. And then it came down to, is Goddard going to be willing to take that pay cut? So that's Chris from Villas chiming in. Dan from EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973. He says Goddard is one of the tush pushers that plays unstoppable because of him. He will forever be a Wall of Famer. The double stiff arm he did in the playoffs against Green Bay is something I will never forget. That's from Dan and EHT. Listen, it's not, again, it was not about Goddard's value. I think it was always about his health. I think it's always about, for a guy like him, when you miss 22 games over a 5-year period, when you're averaging missing 4 to 5 games a year, for a guy who's 30 years old, he's not getting younger, he's not getting healthier, Dan DHT. So for him, I think that the Eagles were trying to explain to him, look, in a league where George Kittle is getting crazy money, sorry, Dallas, we don't see you in the George Kittle, Travis Kelce category anymore. I think that right now, because of the injuries, Goddard is no longer among the best tight ends, the best 3-4 tight ends in football. If you want to say that the best tight ends in football are what? George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Laporta in Detroit, Brock Bowers. If that's the big four, right? I'm probably forgetting somebody. I think Goddard falls behind those guys. To me, Goddard is at this point a tick behind them. And it doesn't mean he can't go out there and have a great year. And if he does, maybe he goes in free agency and gets a nice deal from somebody. But I think a lot of teams, because of Goddard's injury history, had the same view of him as the Eagles did, which is, look, we like you, we appreciate you, but you miss 4 to 5 games every year. And I think for Philadelphia, they said, look, if you're willing to take a $4 million pay cut, we'll bring you back. Because we do value you. We just don't value at $14 million. All right, I'll get more text messages a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Dave Weinberg joins me next for a Weinberg Wednesday on 973 ESPN.
Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN Radio. It's an interleague showdown in Cleveland.
Deep right field, and this game is tied. Monster
Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies face Jose Ramirez and the Cleveland Guardians.
Gone! Jose Ramirez.
The Phillies and Guardians on Sunday Night Baseball. Coverage begins at 6 Eastern.
It's Phillies baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Progressive has great customer service, and it's easy to reach us because great and easy is the way to be. Like salads. Great for you, and so easy you can put any group of veggies in a bowl and it's a salad. A full carrot with a head of cabbage? Weird, but still a salad. One radish and a couple of green beans? Also a salad. 14 blueberries, half an onion, and a sunchoke? Odd, yes, but an odd salad. So contact Progressive's customer service by phone, app, or online. It's great and easy, just like salad. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Here's comedian Howie Mandel for hands-free Cozy Fit Skechers slip-ins.
Yeah, I'm holding a new Cozy Fit Skechers slip-in sneaker, and first of all, I barely know I'm holding it. It's that light. You see, Cozy Fit is a cool new sneaker where the upper is made of a soft quilted material. It's kind of like a little puffer jacket for your feet, except it looks like a super stylish sneaker.
Introducing new Cozy Fit Skechers slip-ins, the latest comfort creation from Skechers. You can find Cozy Fit Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling Grandma for her recipe, no-brainer. Streaming one more episode at 2 a.m., big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas, the ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2024 with select plans. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 5/19/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store single line activation on qualifying plan. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com/terms. Copyright 2025 Verizon.
Legend has it, underneath the NJM insurance offices lies a room of rejected mascot memorabilia. Is it real? No one knows. But we do know NJM is proud to put policyholders first. No jingles or mascots, just great insurance.
Insurance underwritten by NJM Insurance Company and its subsidiaries.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. Christopher Sanchez gets a start for the Phillies tonight, continuing their series in Tampa against the Rays. Philadelphia winning the series opener Tuesday 8-4. They get 3 home runs, including one from Kyle Schwarber, who has 12 on the season, tying him for the most in the majors. Shane Baz will go for Tampa Bay. NBA playoffs tonight. The New York Knicks are in Boston for Game 2 of their series. New York won the opener Monday. The Nuggets will face Oklahoma City tonight in Game 2 of their series. Denver winning Game 1 earlier this week. Coverage on 97.3 ESPN starting at 9. The Eagles and tight end Dallas Goedert reworking his contract will keep him in Philadelphia for the upcoming season. He was entering the final year of a 4-year deal that paid him $14 million per season. The new deal will pay him $10 with a chance to earn $1 million in incentives. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
You matter, and so does your well-being. If you're facing tough moments, struggling with anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, or substance use, help is here anytime you need it. Call, text, or chat 988 for free confidential support. New Jersey's 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is here 24/7 for you or someone you love, with trained counselors who listen and care without judgment. You matter. Remember New Jersey's 988. A message from the New Jersey Department of Human Services.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Pleasant dry weather will continue through tonight and the first half of tomorrow, but here comes our next storm system and possibly over an inch of rain. Scattered clouds tonight with a comfortable low temperature around 58 degrees. Tomorrow starts good, sun and clouds, high 72. A shower or thunderstorm possible in the afternoon and especially evening hours. Friday, periods of rain steadiest in the morning, high comes down to 60. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local restaurants.
Tuckahoe Inn Restaurant, come join the good times. Tennessee Avenue Beer Hall, great beer, killer eats, unmatched vibes. Island Grill Restaurant, serving fresh, delicious seafood favorites in Ocean City for 30 years.
Thank you for supporting these great local restaurants.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
We'll check back on the text board in just a bit. George in Summers Point, others at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. But right now, as promised, joining us for another Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg is back. Extra Point columns over at 973ESPN.com. And if my screen is not deceiving me, he is back at Gusto Brewing down in North Cape May. Am I correct, Dave?
You are correct, Josh. Here for trivia, yep.
Well, let me ask you, Dave, you mentioned trivia. Do you know off the top of your head how many games per year Dallas Goedert has missed in the last 5 years?
Per year? 5.
It's actually 4.5, but so it's basically 4 to 5 a year.
Okay, good. Well, that was close.
which is kind of, I think, the biggest reason why we're even in the position we are, right? Because it's not that the Eagles didn't want him. It's that they didn't want him for $14 million, right? So, it's kind of like, Dallas, we want you, but you're a 30-year-old who misses 4 to 5 games every year. We can't be giving you $14 million.
Yeah, I mean, was he going to be a free agent like now, or would it have been after this year?
After this year. So this, for those who don't know, this was the final year of the last contract he signed, but this was the final year with no guaranteed money and a cash roster bonus. So as long as he was on the roster, he was going to get $14 million this year. And that was why the Eagles said, well, why don't you go look for a trade, or we got to lower that number.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of surprised he's still here, to be honest with you. I don't know why a team wouldn't have traded for him. I thought that the Eagles were going to draft a tight end and kind of, draft his successor the way they did with, Zach Ertz for Brent Selleck and then Dallas for Zach Ertz. I guess as we talked about before with the draft, that how we thought there were tight ends there, but just they didn't fit his big board, I guess, or whatever. But
yeah,
so what does Dallas gain by taking this pay cut?
I think he gets, if you go off of what guys like Mike Garafolo and others were reporting, Dallas didn't want to leave Philadelphia, and he was more interested in being here than going somewhere else. And apparently the Eagles, all the offers, the Eagles apparently received trade offers during the draft.
Okay.
Is what they're reporting. I read a whole article about 973 ESPN.com. Apparently, the Eagles, before and during the draft, they were receiving trade offers. But apparently none of them were like anywhere near what they were hoping to get for Goddard. And apparently somewhere along the way, because remember, Dave, you and I talked about it. What did Nick Sirianni say 2 months ago, right? Well, he's on the team. What did Howie Roseman say? Well, we love that Goddard helped us win a championship. It's like, well, those are ringing endorsements, right? So it's like,
yeah, right.
So somewhere along the way, you went from basically saying goodbye to both sides saying we love you too much. And apparently, according to, Mike Garafolo's reporting, the Eagles coaching staff pretty much went to the front office and said, we want this guy back. You got to get him back.
I don't get why. I mean, and I'm just going over like the scenarios here. So the options were Dallas Goedert takes this pay cut and potentially it's $10 million, potentially $1 million in bonuses. So $11 million. And it's 1 year or so. He's a free agent after this year anyway, or keep your current contract, play for $14 million and become a free agent at the end of the year. So I don't understand why he took this pay cut.
Well, because I think that they might have been considering releasing him. I mean, because remember, the July 1st, teams can do all kinds. Like, for example, one of the reasons why it's been theorized that Justin Simmons hasn't been signed yet is because of the reality that after July 1st, the roster hold of Brandon Graham comes off the books. So then it allows them to bring in Simmons without any cap penalties.
Okay. So, all right. Now, so you cut Dallas Goedert, right? So you get nothing in return, correct? Or you trade him. So why did they, I'm not getting it. I just don't understand their, I guess.
Listen, Dave, you're not the only one. Okay. And I think it goes back to something. That's why I keep saying something happened, right? Between the rhetoric we were given from the NFL Combine to before the NFL Draft. Something happened from, I don't know, I got to pull up a calendar, but I guess whatever the day.
March, whatever, yeah. February, yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is something happened from like April 25th to May 7th. You know what I mean? Like something. Now, you're correct. Maybe the Eagles, in their mind, were thinking we're going to get XYZ tight end, and the board didn't play out that way because, listen, we all know one of the guys the Eagles were looking at was Harold Fannin Jr. Well, who was Harold Fannin Jr.'s coach in college? Scott Loeffler. Scott Loeffler is now the quarterback coach in Philadelphia. And I think when Fannin Jr. went higher than people expected him to, because Cleveland grabbed him a lot earlier than some people thought he would go, I think maybe that's when the Eagles, for lack of a better term, because if you watch the 96 Hours on YouTube, the Eagles, the documentary they put out, Howie gets on the phone when he trades out of the third round and says, he says, hey, we want to get out, and he basically explains it. And the way he said it, he made it sound like, Dave, there's no one we really value with this pick anymore. And that's why we're trading down. And to me, I have to wonder in the back of my mind, right? Was Harold Fannin Jr. a guy they assumed they were getting? And then when all the tight ends they wanted were gone, they just said, abort.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, I guess they figured Dallas Goedert is better than, even if he's, injured, he's still better than what they have instead of him. So currently anyway. So I guess, but I mean, you can't count on him to stay healthy for a year. As you mentioned, 4.5 games per season. He's a really good player when he's healthy, but he just never can seem to stay that way. And so that's why I was a little surprised. But if Dallas probably evidently loves it here and is willing to take less money, then I guess you just roll with that. Like you said, if you didn't get the upgrades that you were hoping to get, then I guess he's the next best option.
Yeah, and listen, maybe it's something where, and look, I'm no draft expert for next year's draft. I don't even barely know who would be qualified for next year's draft. But
I don't know.
I'm sure that I mean, the Eagles employ it seems like 100 people in their front office at this point. Like, I mean, if you watch that, if you watch the 36, I gotta say the 96 Hours was very insightful because at one point they go around the room before the draft round starts. And, Howie's like, all right, you give me a guy, you give me a guy. And it's like, if you go based on the number of people in that room, Dave, there's got to be someone whose job is like, hey, there's 5 tight ends in next year's draft we can get. So I'm sure that's probably that, and also them signing Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson this offseason, 2 younger guys who they're less experienced, but they don't have the injury history that Goddard has. Maybe those guys get to camp, they impress somebody, and they can groom that guy to be the guy moving forward.
Yeah, I guess it's worth a shot, like you said. Bring some guys into camp with Dallas, let them compete, and then next year, apparently, if there's a stud there, then you go get next year's stud. I mean, I can understand. I guess I can somewhat understand the riding with Goddard one more year, but I mean, not really. But they must know more than I do. I just don't. I thought there were plenty of tight ends, and actually, I just thought there were plenty of tight ends in this draft that you could have gotten one that would have really fulfilled the need there. But I guess it's different.
It's just a weird thing. Like I said, to me, it's less about even the draft. It's about just how do you talk about a guy like you're breaking up.
Yeah.
It's like
why would he want to come back knowing that that's how they feel about him? I don't.
Right. It's like someone's putting on social media for months about breakup songs and lyrics about I'm better off on my own, and then all of a sudden you see them back together again. And you're just like, what happened?
Right. Great reality series there potentially.
Dave Weiberg joining me here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, he is, as usual, live from Gusto Brewing in North Cape May, joining us. Sticking with the Eagles for a minute, now that Goddard is back, I think we can basically say the offense, at least on paper, Dave, is the same as last year, right? There's really no changes aside from right guard. But the question, though, is the biggest change, which is another offensive coordinator, Dave. Another guy who's got to come in here and be another voice in the quarterback's ear. And I know that Hurts is used to it. I know he's been through, 10 different offensive coordinators since his freshman year of college. Like, it's some ridiculous number like that. But at some point, don't we have to look around and be like, have a little concern that you have a guy taking over the offensive coordinator who's never been an OC, who has never called plays? I don't care how much A.J. Brown and the other guys like him. Dave, I like a lot of people, but I don't want them calling plays for my football team.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to have a certain level of concern there. I mean, like you said, Jalen's used to this kind of turmoil, but there comes a point where, how much is too much? There comes a point where I think he gets overwhelmed or he gets confused or just not sure about what is expected of him from the coordinator. Granted, this is Nick Sirianni's offense. The coordinator's just putting his fingerprint on it, I guess. But still, there's got to be some sort of continuity there, and and they don't have it. That's my concern, or I guess fear, is that it's going to. Excuse me, someone's tried to fix it. It's Days of Thunder. My concern is that maybe they just that they reach a point where he's not going to get it. He's not going to fully understand what's expected of him, and that's gonna hurt the offense, because you're right, they're loaded with talent, but you still have to put all that stuff together. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because now
drag races on Ferry Road, and you can't beat that. Right?
I'm just in my mind trying to figure out who was Cole and who was Russ in that scenario. For those who haven't seen Days of Thunder, it's basically a NASCAR movie, and Tom Cruise is in it. Was it Robert Duvall is the crew chief? I think
so. Yeah. It's been a while.
His love interest was Nicole Kidman. Like, his love interest was in like 20 movies.
Correct.
Fred Thompson. Remember, he was in that movie. I mean, good grief.
Wow,
now I'm thinking about it. I kind of want to go back and watch that movie again, because it's like that. I believe that cast was pretty stacked.
Yeah, it's true. I'm more of a Talladega Nights kind of guy, but that's right.
Well, you got to remember, Talladega Nights was kind of a mock-off of Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
Because I remember Will Ferrell did an interview where he explained that, the inspiration for some of those characters was Days of Thunder, and that, that's why they wanted John C. Reilly to be in Talladega Nights, because he was also 12 years earlier in Days of Thunder, to try to kind of do that mock connection.
Mm-hmm. Shake and bake.
Shake and bake, yeah.
Sorry,
apparently
but I digress. Yeah.
Apparently there's another story behind the shake and bake line, but we don't have time to get into that right now.
Okay.
Let's get it back to the Eagles. But it's interesting because, you mentioned about, at some point, what if Hurts has an issue with the guy in his ear? What if the guy in his ear is not communicating well enough? What if Hurts misunderstands him somewhere along the way? I'm not hoping for something bad to happen, but what if it's 3rd and 8 and the coordinator is running relaying information to him? Hurts misunderstands him because maybe the mic cracks in his ear, and there's a bit of electrical something or another. He misunderstands the guy, and because he doesn't have enough familiarity, he can't mentally fill in how it is, Dave. You're married. There's times that you know what your wife wants, and she doesn't have to finish the whole sentence. You're just like, yeah, okay, honey. You just go and do it. There's a familiarity that comes with knowing people.
That's true. Yes.
So it's like if Hurts doesn't know the guy as well, and he mishears the call in his ear, and he gets blasted on a blitz, and he gets a concussion. You know what I mean? Like, things can go sideways here.
I get blasted on blitzes at home all the time. So be 43 years in June. I've faced my share of blitzes.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm wondering if Sirianni's role changes here back to what it was before. Like, he's been.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, he's been the CEO, sort of, and letting people handle things. But maybe because there's a new offense coordinator, maybe he's tempted to kind of regain a little bit more control on the offense. I hope I'm wrong as well, but I can't help but wonder if he's maybe tempted to do that to kind of ease the the transition a little bit. I don't know.
If he gets tempted to do that, someone's got to step in and tell him no. You know what I mean? It's like like someone's got to be the intervention. You know what I mean? Like someone's got to be like, Nick, we're all gathered here because we need to help you resist, Nick, resist, something.
Right.
I don't know who that person is. I mean, you and I had this conversation last year when he had the outburst on the sideline, and then he brought his children to the press conference as human shields. And I remember you and I talked about like, who is the person in Nick's life who sits him down. Like, because we all have somebody in our lives. We all have a friend that knows us well enough who will tell us, Josh, Dave, you're being stupid. You're doing the wrong thing. Like, I don't know who that is in Nick Sirianni's world, but I'm hoping that person would intervene in this situation.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, he needs someone to be that voice in his ear to tell him, just stick with what you're doing. It's working. You won a Super Bowl. Don't try to tinker with things that just to fill your ego or think that you think you might need to do. There's no sense in doing that.
I mean, that's the only reason why I had hoped for the last couple of years that Frank Reich would come back to Philly in some capacity, because we know that Nick really respects him and admires him. Like, he speaks about Frank Reich in the same way he speaks about his father. Like, there's a reverence there. And so, and Dave, when you covered the Eagles when they won the championship in 2017, how important Frank Reich was to Doug, being in Doug's ear, giving him like, hey, Doug, do this, don't do this. So I have to think that I would feel differently and a little more confident if you told me Frank Reich's in the building. Maybe he's not coaching, but he's just like hanging around like Vic Fangio was in 2022.
Right, like the ever popular consultant or something.
Right.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
By the way, speaking of the consultant, before I let you go, so for anybody who watched the 96 Hours, and Dave, you know how this works. So, the Eagles, how Nick Saban was like the place that like former coaches go for like the rehabilitation for their coaching careers. So like now you have executives doing that to Howie. And in the 96 Hours, you see former Jags GM Dave Caldwell in there. And he's the one who recommended the Eagles drafting Kyle McCord. And I just started chuckling because I'm like, oh, there he is, the next guy that Howie Roseman's going to rehab his reputation to get another job.
How about that? Yeah. First you have the quarterback factory, now you got the GM factory. Huh?
Right, the GM factory, yeah. And then the question can be like 20 years from now, were the Eagles better at producing GMs or quarterbacks?
There you go, yep.
Because you know how it is. It seems like every year somebody's interviewing some Eagles executive for a job.
Sure, yeah, it happens all the time, yep.
And we know what's going to happen. If Tanner McKee or Kyle McCord play well in this preseason, Howie's going to start taking calls. Who wants them? Give me a draft pick,
Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Dave, I'll let you get back to trivia. I appreciate you joining me here on 97.3 ESPN. At Dave Weinberg 19 on the Twitter X platform. Extra point columns at 97.3 ESPN.com. And he's getting a lot more fresh air than I am. That's Dave Weinberg.
My pleasure, Josh. Thanks again as always. I appreciate it.
Say hi to Zach and everyone down there for me.
Absolutely will. Take care.
Josh Hennig back here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, the Sirianni question's interesting because does Sirianni truly learn, or does he have like a default setting? Is there a part of Sirianni that just says, like it's like if you have someone with a bad habit, right? Is Sirianni being involved with the offense like a bad habit where, maybe he stayed clean for a year and now he's getting a temptation, right? The temptation returns to walk back into that offensive play calling room and not just sit in the back, but go to the front of the room and start barking out instructions. Is there that part of Sirianni that gets the itch to be involved? Or is he the kind of guy who says, I made a mistake, I'm learning from it, and part of learning from it is I'm never going to make that mistake again? two different types of people. We're going to find out which type of person is Nick Sirianni. You know, I was reading the book, The Why is Everything, by Mike Silver. And one of the parts of the book, it talks about the lessons that some of these coaches who come from the Mike Shanahan tree had to learn the hard way. And one of the lessons that Sean McVay learned is that Sean McVay has a bad tendency. And one of his bad tendencies is when things go tough, when things go wrong, when things go a little sideways, he tends to run away from everybody and want to work by himself and alone. And one of the reasons why McVay hired Raheem Morris years ago as his DC wasn't just because he was very good at his job, but because Raheem Morris and him had such a good personal and professional relationship that Morris could call him out on his BS, basically. And there was apparently one situation where McVay basically got frustrated with a losing streak, and he vacated the office and was only doing work from home. And basically Morris had to go to McVay at his house and say, get up off your rear, get back to work. You need to be in the building. The guys need to see you. And McVay basically, talked about how, he had this habit of, wanting to just do everything himself and not work with people at times. So that's an example of a head coach who has a bad habit. And when things go sideways, when times get tough, they tend to resort to this bad habit. And if you have the right people around you that will help prevent you from falling into that habit, falling into that, whatever it may be, that, something that maybe, one of the things with habits is, if you've ever studied psychology, is the people who have habitual tendencies, right? Someone who, bites their fingernails, or, pulls, plays with their hair too much, or pulls on it, or, someone who picks their nose, or, someone who has, they quit cigarettes, so they have oral fixation, so they have to bite on or chew something like a pen or a pencil. All of these, they're triggers in the mind that when times get tough, you want to resort to something that gives you a sense of recalibration, a sense of recentered value. And so does Sirianni have those same tendencies that Sean McVay does? Or is he the kind of coach that can say, I'm going to learn from this mistake, I'm never making this mistake again? Like, for example, and again, I'm using the book as a specific example, Matt LaFleur, he went through a situation where, when he first started working with Aaron Rodgers, things were rocky. And he learned that he needed to hire somebody who was kind of going to be a buffer between him and the superstar quarterback. And he learned, not just through personal experience, but he learned about that when he was the buffer in Atlanta between Kyle Shanahan and Matt Ryan, who were both hard-headed individuals. So LaFleur in Green Bay, even with Jordan Love, even though Love is not Love is not, according to reports, as obstinate as Aaron Rodgers is, not as hard-headed at times. But LaFleur said, look, I had success in having this guy who's a buffer between me and the quarterback as the offensive coordinator. I'm going to continue that because I learned from my mistake. So we're going to find out very soon. Is Nick Sirianni more like Matt LaFleur, or is he more like Sean McVay? All right, back to text board coming up on the other side. Goody in Galloway. We also got George in Summers Point. All your texts and more coming up next on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios of Atlantic City.
The NBA playoffs continue on ESPN Radio.
Jokic for three. Good, he got it, and the lead belongs to Denver.
The Denver Nuggets win Game 1 in Oklahoma City. Can they make it 2 straight, or will the Thunder bounce back?
Gilgeous-Alexander open three. Bang, he got it, and the Thunder have taken the lead.
Game 2 of the Thunder and Nuggets. Coverage begins today at 9 Eastern.
NBA playoff basketball on 97.3 ESPN.
We're famous for our buffalo wings. The Piccalilli. When it comes to cooking wings, we're the king. The Piccalilli.
On game day, don't wing it. Take the trip to the Pick, South Jersey's king of the wing. Try their award-winning wings, tails, and ears in mild, spicy, or hot, or signature flavors like garlic parm, hot honey, Jim Beam maple, and more. For eat-in or takeout, get your chicken wing fix on Route 206 at the Piccalilli Inn. Join the flock. Follow them on Facebook for events and game day specials.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Worried about your battery and the heat? We get it. You don't want to get stranded somewhere with a car that feels like an oven. We've got you covered at AutoZone, America's #1 battery destination. Our free battery testing and charging service can help. And if you need a battery, we'll help you find a new one, no problem. Power through with free battery testing and charging at AutoZone.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Shopping with your parents can be embarrassing.
Why would they sell jeans with holes in them? I'm going to speak to the manager.
Mom!
That hoodie is giving. You should get it. YOLO.
Thanks to the Chase mobile app, your kid can shop independently while you keep an eye on their spending. So you can go from...
We can be twinsies.
...to...
How was shopping? Saw you stayed on budget.
Thanks, Mom.
Freedom for kids, control for parents. That's family banking from Chase.
Account subject to approval. Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank N.A. Member FDIC.
O'Reilly. Get the full exterior car care experience with the Pro X1 Car Care Collection Wash Kit. Only at O'Reilly Auto Parts. The kit includes all-wheel tire and cleaner, glass cleaner, snow foam car wash, and a microfiber wash mitt. Get the essentials in one box for just $19.99. Choose Pro X1 exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
If you need to hire, it seems like the whole process can be exhausting. You search resumes, wait for the right candidates to apply, set up initial interviews. It's a lot of time and work. Well, what if you could meet with qualified candidates for your job the very next day? Now you can with Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Zip Intro is super easy to use. You simply pick a time, and it does all the work of finding and scheduling qualified candidates for you. Then you can choose who you want to talk to and meet with great people on back-to-back video calls as soon as the next day. Best of all, you save time and energy.
Try Zip Intro for free right now at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Zip Intro. Post jobs today, talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Once again, go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio to try it for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Bundle from Progressive so you can stop worrying about them and invent new things to worry about, like snakes in your bedroom. Sure, that sounds incredibly irrational, but now that we've mentioned it, you are a little worried. The odds of one snake, let alone snakes plural, are so slim. But you might want to check. Oh, you're not near your bedroom. Guess you'll just have to sit there and worry about it. So let Progressive protect your home and auto, because you've got enough to worry about. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Spring is here and summer's right around the corner. Is your home ready to handle the heat? Make sure it is with Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Right now, when you purchase a full HVAC system, Broadleys will throw in a brand new hot water heater for free. That's an $1,800 value at no cost to you. But hurry, this limited time spring special won't last. Call Broadleys today for your free estimate at 609-390-3907. Or visit Broadleys.net to schedule online.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
As promised, right to the text board, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And as always, we are live on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. George in Summers Point says, hey, Josh, totally agree with your interpretation of the Cowboys trade today for Pickens. I hope that it wrecks the season just like you predict. And it will definitely fit in with all the other wild boys that Dallas seems to covet. That's for George in Summers Point. Yeah, George, I never understand. Well, I understand, but I don't understand. The Cowboys' obsession with getting the shiniest toy, it always perplexed me because, for someone who is supposed to be such a great businessman, it's like Jerry Jones is infatuated or obsessed or in love or whatever you want to call it with people who don't make sense for good business. Like, the idea of, if you ever listen to, smart investment people, right, about stocks and bonds and stuff, they always talk about, you don't want to be a hyper aggressive risk taker, and you don't want to, you don't want to be the person who takes too many risks with your investment portfolio. And then Jerry Jones is like, I want to take risks with everything with my football team. And it's just such an odd way to go about life. I never understood it. Texas didn't leave their name, so we'll just call them anonymous. Says Josh, it seems to me like Goddard looked around. No one was giving him any more money. So he was like, I'm good here. Let's not make it like he decided he was going to stay no matter what. Well, I never say he was going to stay no matter what. I think you're misunderstanding it. I explained that the Eagles gave him an opportunity to seek a trade. Teams called the Eagles. The offers were not what that the Eagles were looking for, and there was no destination that Goddard felt compelled to want to go to. So he said, I'd rather stay in Philadelphia. And the Eagles said, well, let's work out a deal. Again, I think the only people who are saying that Dallas Goedert is great or anything like that are a segment of the fans who love him because they're going to help them win a championship. Goody and Galloway chimes in at 609-403-0973. Says, I think you're overvaluing George Pickens. 31st in receptions, 20th in yards, 34th in touchdowns. He is in the top 15. Instead, being the top receiver in the Steelers, he's a clear number 2 with CeeDee Lamb. Well, Goody, I never said he wasn't the number 2 with the Cowboys. Look, you can throw me all the stats you want. His talent and skill set is of a player of a certain caliber. CeeDee Lamb is clearly the number 1. If you say he doesn't move the needle, that's fine. Listen, I'm with you. I think the Cowboys are number 3 in the NFC East. But there's a lot of people who are football experts like Dan Orlovsky on ESPN who think that Pickens going to the Cowboys means they can be a top 5, top 10 offense now. And this is the organization that showed with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb that they can be elite. And there are people who would say that George Pickens is better than Amari Cooper. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow. You're on 97.3 ESPN.
Our smart devices, they can be a benefit or a strain on our health. But with some mindful adjustments, we can use them for our well-being.